Giving and receiving feedback are skills. When I ask people which do they prefer to receive or give feedback, usually they say they prefer to receive because giving seems hard to them. And the reality is receiving is actually hard also, but we need to create an environment where feedback is continuous and just part of what we do. They talk about it in business terms as extreme candor at some points, where you're giving people real feedback. Well, if feedback is part of a safe learning environment, it's not going to hurt to either give or receive. You want to find a way to make it part of your process. So the first thing in giving and receiving feedback is to set a safe learning environment. People need to understand that the feedback is about the process, not about the people. If we're giving feedback about the people, saying, you are bad, that is different than saying, that action wasn't appropriate, or here's a better way to do it. You want to be thinking about ways to create a safe learning environment where people can take the feedback and not feel like it's being held against them. If it's formative feedback, it's for learning. It's not summative assessment, which is a test. Formative feedback also, by the way, really shouldn't have much tracking to say, well, are they getting better over time or not? We're just trying to see, did they improve? In formative feedback, if somebody makes a mistake, gets better, it's forgotten. That's setting a learning environment. Now that's hard because a lot of times, both in healthcare as a whole and in education, feedback is seen as a grade. We need to shift that. We need to shift it to being something that's continuous. Once we start going in that direction, we can start giving people real feedback in real time. We learn best when the feedback is immediate and actionable, when it's something that we can actually make a change based on. To do that, feedback has to be given to us by somebody that we respect and in an environment that's safe. What happens is the best sign of respect to somebody is by being invested in them and being willing to give them feedback. Some people receive feedback best verbally, some people written. Best is both, where I can give you feedback written, but also explain it to you, or vice versa. One thing on the written, got to make sure it's a safe learning environment. People don't think that's like going into their permanent file. We want to make sure that the feedback is clear. So sometimes what happens, we get this feedback phone tag. Well, feedback phone tag isn't going to help anyone. Feedback phone tag is, well, I don't want to tell somebody directly, so I tell their boss or somebody else or their peer or whatever, and it gets to them a couple weeks later. And at a residency, an attending tells the chief resident who has to tell the resident. Well, by the time it gets there, it's 2 weeks later, and the context is lost. And it feels now like somebody went to somebody's boss and ratted them out. Feedback needs to be a constant process. And ideally, it should be a discussion. So if we do feedback appropriately, it goes something like this. I saw you did this. Here's my concern. Help me understand what you're doing. If that sounds like advocacy and inquiry, it is. That's Rudolph et al. It's a way of getting to people's mental model. We want to understand what they're doing and then give them some feedback so they can try it again. Do, reflect, think, redo. So the reflection is, this is what I saw. The think is, well, how can we do it differently? Let's go try it again. We need to be in this process. On the flip side, we need to build better skills at receiving feedback. There's a lot of discussion about a generational difference in feedback, where people talk about the trophy generation, or those who are not used to getting feedback. Some of that's true, so we'll have to give it some credit. Some of it's also just generalizations. But what happens is people will say, well, so-and-so doesn't receive feedback well. Well, we need to work on how do they receive feedback, because that's a skill that's going to help them throughout their entire life. We need to figure out ways to receive feedback. As learners, building skills and receiving feedback and making changes may be the most valuable, because most people nowadays will have 7 significant career changes in their life. That means they have to constantly learn to take feedback. It's not easy. To make it easier, we have to make sure we keep it about what happened, not who did what. We talk about the action, not the person. Now, in the action versus the person, we have to be very careful in feedback for the halo or horn effect. The halo effect is, well, we might think that Jane is the best in the world. So, of course, when she makes a mistake, we go, nah, it's no biggie, she just messed up. On the flip side, we might think John has a set of horns. Everything he does is wrong. Well, then when he does something wrong, go, see, that was just John being John. And when he gets something right, we go, wow, he got lucky. Well, the halo and horn effect is very easy and very insidious. Because what will happen is one person within a team, let's say a team of educators or attendings, will say, I'm having a problem with this resident. And everybody else will go, oh yeah, me too. Because it's like when you ask somebody, do you have pain in your shoulder? Oh yeah, of course I do, because you pointed it out. We need to make sure we're giving people a fair shot. We may even need to do a reset. Say, you know what? We need to start over. We're going to clean the slate, and we truly need to do that in order to keep going. Part of what we're trying to do is set an environment for learning versus assessment or evaluation. Assessment or evaluation is where we take those scores and turn it into an action. Well, with feedback, we should be constantly giving everybody, both our best, our worst, and everybody in between, feedback so they improve. What we want to be moving towards is something called feedforward. Feedforward is the concept that something I've told you will help you in the future. When it's seen as feedback, what often happens is people see it as punitive. You messed up. I actually watched this once in a debriefing. Somebody came in and said, you suck, you suck, you suck, you did fine. That is not feedback. That is a beating. Feedforward, on the other hand, would say, okay, well, next time, try this. And then give them that opportunity to try it. And it's also about intent. The intent of feedforward is, I know you can get better, and here's what you can do to do it.